I'm done trying to live up to others' expectations. Family, society, class, race, sex, or religions. It's time to break free from the isms that make us feel like we're in prison. I'm ready to be unleashed as fuck. I'm ready to be unleashed as fuck. Tired of the madness, done with the sadness. Gonna break free and be unleashed.
Hello, beautiful, hopeful peeps. Well, I hope you're still hopeful. I'm still hopeful. We are Unleashed AF, and we're ready to drop some knowledge for you. I don't know what that was from. We have some insights on this DEI thing that's been going around for a while. The more you know, the more likely you can unleash from it. I just realized you wrote that for me, didn't you, Jenny?
I did. I'm your ghostwriter.
Look at that. I'm Deidre Beechin, mentor and catalyst for women who refuse to stay stuck. I left a religious cult, came out of the closet, and walked away from a 20-year marriage built on nice girl training and patriarchal conditioning. Over 27 months, I rewired my mind and reclaimed my power. Okay. Now I dare nice girls to unmask their power voice, take up space, and lead like the badasses they are. Jenny.
Yes, you do. And I'm Jenny Baddick, hypno coach and human factors engineer. I empower people to tap into their subconscious superpowers to be used for good, of course, and to achieve their full potential. And welcome to Unleashed AF, the podcast where we help you unleash your greatness and your authentic self. If you're enjoying our shows, be sure to like, share, follow, subscribe, all those social media verbs. And drop your thoughts, questions, and suggestions in the comments. Or you can go to our website at unleashedafpodcast.com. And you can go to the page on there that is WWJDD. What would Jenny and Deidre do? We love doing this podcast, and we do it for you guys. So the more feedback you give us, the more we can give you what's helpful and helps you to unleash.
Awesome. I was kind of laughing because you were over there doing all this stuff and I'm just watching. I'm like, I could have put that up for you. I'm so sorry. In our last episode, we talked about the shiitake that went down last week. And oh my goodness, we had all kinds of things. Liberation Day, the stock market kind of crashing on out or losing. Well, it didn't completely crash, but it certainly took a nosedive. Let's see. Neighborhood Gay Watch, we talked about, good grief, brought you up to speed on Trump's ongoing crypto con, as well as inspirational stories of the tides beginning to turn. Thank goodness. Cory Booker's record-setting filibuster and the Wisconsin Supreme Court winning Elon's attempt to buy a judge. Okay. We need some help down here in North Carolina. Wow. Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of stuff happening down here. My wife's one of the people that lost her vote. Her vote is... So we're fighting to get her vote back. If you missed last week's episode, it's currently available on YouTube and Facebook, Unleashed AF. So let's talk about this week. It seems like we've got like a month's worth of stuff every week that is happening.
Yeah.
It's just nuts. There's a really cool video that we have. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'm just going to show you real quick so you can know to look for this guy.
In the last 48 hours, congressional Republicans have done so much damage to Americans. Here are the 5.
And he goes over the 5 things that actually wasn't 24 hours ago, but 3 days ago, what had been passed in 48 hours. And it's really interesting information, and it's some of these things. SAVE Act is one of them. And so the SAVE Act, if you've gotten married and your driver's license does not match your birth certificate, you may not be able to vote.
That's crazy.
Unless you have a passport. So it's basically a poll tax.
Yeah.
It's a poll tax on the poor. It's a poll tax on the poor and any woman that has gotten married.
Mm-hmm. And for what reason? Like, there's no reason other than to suppress votes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, I guess they probably would claim it's supposed to be an attempt to overcome like voter fraud or whatever. But there's been this is not what's happening.
Yeah, it's like finding out you have an ant in your house and burning the house down so that no more ants get into your house.
Yeah.
It's just nuts.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's so that now it has not come into law. It's passed the House of Representatives. So it still does have to go through the Senate, and hopefully it will get turned down. It did go to the Senate last year as well. It made it past the House, it didn't pass the Senate, and they're trying it again. This is right down Project 2025. This is in the Project 2025 playbook. They
Yep.
do not want, they eventually want to strip all women's rights to vote. That is the goal. This is just a step in that direction.
Yeah. And can I say, because this is sort of related to that in terms of your name being different from what your birth, record would show. There was also a situation this week, local here in Central Florida, Brevard County, where I live, where a teacher, local high school teacher, her contract has not been renewed, so she's out of a job at the end of this school year, simply because she called a student by their preferred name instead of their legal name without parent permission. So it's along those same lines. Now that law went into effect. It's just a state law in Florida. It went into effect in 2023, which wasn't Donald Trump, but it was Ron DeSantis who,
He made he's a sycophant. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just ridiculous. Like all the other kids call the kid by that name. She used it too, and the parents got her fired, basically.
Well, Florida is the home base of the "Don't Say Gay."
That's the bill. Yeah, that's actually the thing that
bill.
Prevents her from using that name.
It's
Stupid.
just absolutely insanity. Absolute insanity.
It
And
is.
and what's crazy is, it's so arbitrary. Because it's if you take the law strictly, then nobody can have any nicknames.
Well, the thing that they're supposed to do that would make it okay to call them by a preferred name is at the beginning of the school year, there's a form that gets sent home with the kid. And if the parent signs that form and lists the different names that are okay for you to call them, like our son Alex, Alexander is his full name, but we had to say, yep, it's okay to call him Alex. But that's what makes it okay.
That is insanity.
I agree.
It's government out. It's just
Yeah.
Yeah, the country that's supposed to be so free ain't so free.
Yeah. And I will say on the positive tip on that, there was a video. I didn't see it in time to pull it in for the episode, but I did see a video from the local school board meeting where there was a fellow teacher and mother of a student of that teacher who was speaking to the school board and saying, I hope you'll reconsider because this makes us the laughing stock, basically, of the country. It's ridiculous. And that teacher had done nothing that was of harmful intent. It did not hurt anyone. It did not affect their ability to learn, other than in a positive way, potentially, because she actually showed respect to the student. And she also compared it to, there's another situation going on that has to do with a different teacher in the same school district. I think it's a drug, some question of a drug being introduced or being around children that should not have been in the teacher's classroom. And that's been going on. An investigation's been going on for months, where this incident just happened like a week ago, and they've already announced that she's not going to be renewed. So they're like,
wow.
A little hypocritical there.
It's just the insanity. It's just insane.
Yeah.
Speaking of insanity, so the stock market tanked, did a huge nosedive 2 days in a row, almost 3 days in a row. The third day wasn't quite as bad. And he told he told people about it. He told people when it was going to, when he was basically going to reverse the tariffs. There was insider trading. I wish I had I thought I had, no, I don't. I thought I had the graph. There's a graph that shows when the stock market tanked. And then there's this little blip of a whole bunch of insider trading. And then when
Mm.
he announced that the tariffs were coming off, and then of course it went back up again. But there was basically, and I don't want to say this wrong. There was at least millions, but maybe billions made. Am I inaccurate?
I don't think so.
And they were bragging about it with Trump at the White House. And yeah, and I'll just do a quick search. You can find those videos.
Yep.
At the time that I was seeing these, TikTok, because TikTok keeps getting manipulated. And so on TikTok, it kept saying that I didn't have internet. I was trying to save it to Unleashed and to download it. It says no internet connection. And yet I was watching videos.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens every time there's I shouldn't say every time, a lot of times when there's big news, they make it so that you can't download things, can't save them, repost them, because they
Yeah.
don't want the information being shared.
Well, and this is something that like Robert Reich and people like that were kind of pointing out before Trump just came out and said the quiet part out loud. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is what he seems to be doing because he keeps threatening tariffs and then pausing them. It's a pattern. And it's because he can then help his buddies make money off of it. I
Mm-hmm.
thought, ugh. So, it's just it's just so hard to understand how his followers don't refuse to see that and still think that he's actually doing this for them.
Because and I the longer this goes on, the more I'm convinced that the knitting cult lady is correct in that MAGA itself is a cult. And if you look at the definition of a cult and how it works, it only makes sense. And the harder people try to show MAGA that this is not working for you, for anybody, the more they're going to put their feet into the ground and go, you just need to wait because Daddy Trump's going to take care of us.
Mm-hmm.
Daddy Trump is going to take care of us.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable. And it's so hard for people on the outside looking in going, how do you not? But for them, kind of like what you were saying, the perception, for them, everything that they think is true. And for us, everything we think is true. And they don't match. And that's so hard
Mm-hmm.
when the policies are affecting you and your loved ones, for
Yeah.
other people to not see it, not understand it, and to dismiss you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I told you, maybe it was last week after we were done with the pod, I've watched a whole series now of a documentary that was, I think it was How I Escaped My Cult, that's on either Hulu or Netflix. I can't remember which one. And there were, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 episodes. Each one was of a different cult, basically a different person's story of coming out of their cult. And there were just so many similarities, to watch that and hear them describe the situation, what they felt when they were in it still and still believing everything, and what it took to like open their eyes. Because some of them had the idea of, I got to get out of here on their own. Some of them, it was just, they kind of got saved by somebody on the outside infiltrating the cult, like breaking it up. And then they were able to see, what it was. But God, there were so many. I thought, man, the people, this should be, if only this could be on like regular channels so that everybody could watch this and maybe see the similarities or the parallels to what's actually going on right now in our country. It's crazy.
Yeah, and the whole time all of this crazy stuff is happening, Trump's golfing.
Yeah. I believe it was the same day
Yeah,
as I don't know, something, it was either the same day, I believe it was the same day of the big, well, there were several days. So it was one of the days of the stock market taking a huge dip. And the post from his, I don't know, one of his social media accounts was bragging about the fact that he had just won another golf tournament at his golf course, which is still laughable to me. But, and there was a little video I shared it to our Facebook page already, the Unleashed AF Facebook page, of Jasmine Crockett in a congressional hearing that was about Doge somehow. So questioning the work that they've done. And she was talking about how, if we're looking for inefficiencies in our government where we're spending money, we've spent approximately $26 million so far since Trump took office just on him going to play golf. And she said, I don't see where we're getting anything out of that. Like, that doesn't help us at all. And he was playing golf not only while the stock market was crashing. So to me, if I thought he was, America first and there for the common man, I wouldn't think he'd be going playing golf when everybody's retirement is going poof. And not even posting like, oh, be patient, it'll get better. He's going, hey, I just won another golf tournament at my own fucking course. But he also, this is even more ridiculous and disrespectful from my perspective. And I cannot imagine how people can defend this. But as those 4 soldiers that died in the helicopter accident, I believe, over in Lithuania, as their bodies were being returned to U.S. soil, typically a president will show up to receive those bodies. Nope, playing golf and down there with the Saudi princes. Like, I don't see how they can justify that. I really don't.
Yeah, but
yes.
Obama's brown suit.
Yep. International incident right there.
Kamala's laugh and Hillary's emails. Just saying.
Yep, and Sleepy Joe.
And more good news from this administration. We have J.D. Vance causing an international incident. Let's take a listen.
The president's new tariff policy. And when I think about what he got
incurring a huge amount of debt to buy things that other countries make for us. And to make it a little bit more crystal clear, we borrow money from Chinese peasants to buy the things those Chinese peasants manufacture. That is not a recipe for economic prosperity. It's not a recipe for low prices, and it's not a recipe for good jobs in the United States of America.
中方对中美经贸关系的立场已经讲得很清楚了。听到这位副总统说出这样无知又缺乏礼貌的话，令人诧异，也感到悲哀。
Not surprising to us.
Not surprising. Frustrating.
Yeah.
And to have a vice president of the country call an entire other country's citizens peasants. It's just the amount of disrespect. It's really disheartening. It's really disheartening.
I mean, at least you could say the guy's consistent, because wasn't it just the week before that he was talking about Greenland and pissing them off? Like he's consistently pissing off like every foreign country. Just give him time. He'll make it around to all of them. It's just ridiculous.
It is. And just as ridiculous, we have more and more universities falling to this regime. This is in New York University, and you'll have to read the words on the screen. But basically, this girl got an email. She goes to New York University. I might take a look at what she has to say.
Laughing at the way that you would say, if only, baby, there were cameras in the traffic lights. They make me a star. They make me a star. I wanna go, mate.
So people are losing their scholarships. They're losing their ability to go to school. This in Ohio State.
Hi everyone, my name is Kieran Dool. I am also a recruitment and enrollment specialist in the College of Arts and Sciences. I'm also the past program manager, and I will also be starting as a PhD student this fall. I do want to say that In this role, I don't feel like I can, in good faith, really tell you to come to this university because of the recent news. And I would like to resign from my position in recruitment. I will continue.
She's like, I can't, in good faith, recruit people to this school because of the policy changes they've made as a result of this regime.
Yeah.
More and more of this is happening, and it's not just schools, it's also newspapers. At the end of this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about what happened on the 5th. As we all know, the protests. But look at this. This is the newspapers. This is the newspapers the day after the nationwide protests. The day after.
Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste. I've been around for a long, long year. Stole many a man's soul and faith.
New York Times, the Washington Post, two of the biggest newspapers in the country. Zero mention on the front page to one of the biggest protests that has ever happened in this country. And it didn't make front page news.
It's got to be the biggest overall.
Yeah, it might. 5.2 million people, but we'll get to that at the end. But it's just more and more people complying to things that are just bad for us. I mean, this is straight out of the On Tyranny book. This compliance to this thing, to do not obey in advance. And there are so many people doing that. She gave a great example of not. She's like, I'm not going to do this. You're going to have to find somebody else to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they will find somebody, but at least, the more of us that stand up, the harder it is for them to find, defend institutions. Well, I can't, I don't know if I can defend New York Times or Washington Post anymore. They've fallen. They have fallen. But what we can do is we can not support these things and take some responsibility for what is going on.
Yeah. And that actually reminds me, the thing about not giving in before you even
before this demanded. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I did hear somewhere that the explanation for why Trump paused the tariffs that made the stock market kind of rebound a bit was because 75 countries had already reached out to reconsider the trade agreement or whatever and capitulate to him. So he's walking around chest pumping like, hey, yeah, I got everybody to bow to me because I've got the control now. That's not what happened. What actually happened was there may have been 75 countries that called, but they also, they were saying, we didn't get a call back. Nothing's been discussed. But that was, enough for him to go, oh, well, I'll just raise it up because I've got all my billionaire buddies now that have bought into the stocks. So we'll just go ahead and pause them because they'll still get something out of it. It's not about helping us.
Oh, gosh, it's never been about helping us.
Right.
It has never been about helping us.
Yep.
And speaking of not helping us, let's talk about our topic for the week.
Yeah.
So we're going back into research mode and doing some deeper dives. And this week, we want to talk about DEI. And there's so much confusion about DEI. I keep seeing people get just lost about what in the world DEI is. And I want to start by telling a quick story. This woman was on a plane, and the couple on the plane with her were watching Fox News. She got off the plane. She was starting to get off the plane. They brought 2 wheelchairs for these 2 to get off of the plane. So they deplane, they get off. She follows them, and they stop. And she says, hey, saw you on the plane with me. Are you Trump supporters? And they're like, yeah. And she's like, that's interesting. Do you believe in DEI? Oh, terrible. DEI is horrible. She says, that's really interesting. Just because your wheelchairs are part of DEI. we don't need wheelchairs on the plane. You were the only two that needed a wheelchair to get off that plane. Their special accommodation was made for you so that you could get off that plane. That's DEI. And it was interesting that in the post that in the comment section was very revealing, because there were people in there going, and the bravado that came across was, "That's not DEI. You're an idiot. That's ADA. That's been around a lot longer than DEI has ever thought about being around." So, Jenny.
It's just, they latch on to the hot button terms that get created and think that, well, this stuff hasn't been around forever, because I've only started to hear about this term recently. But DEI has been around for quite a while. And really, I really wanted to understand the difference. Like, where's the line drawn between civil rights legislation, which we know has been around for decades, and DEI, which is what most people talk about today? And basically, what I found was they're the same basic premise. I mean, both of them are trying to do the same kind of things. DEI goes a little further than just civil rights, because it talks about inclusion, making people feel comfortable and stuff like that. But the difference kind of is civil rights legislation is on the side of, these are the laws that you must comply with to provide people equitable living conditions and stuff like that, based on a variety of categories they could fall into. DEI is more on the organization side in terms of
and implementation.
Yes, how they implement the policies and procedures that get put in place so that they don't get arrested or they don't end up violating a civil rights thing. So yeah, they're pretty intricately combined, because the way to enforce DEI things is through civil legislation, civil rights legislation.
So I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, that's basically where you draw the line. It's the enforcement side is the civil rights legislation. DEI is like the programs that the companies put into place. So it may look a little different, may have different colors in different companies and organizations based on what they're willing to do or how far they're willing to go. They can go above and beyond just the bare minimum that the law says they have to do. But if they go below the level of the standard of the civil rights legislation, they can get slapped with that.
So civil rights would be why something like the ADA would come into existence, right? The American Disabilities Act.
Yep.
But the very appearance of the American Disabilities Act is a part of diversity, equity, and inclusion, because it includes you. It allows you to have special, I'm talking about this couple, allows them to have a special compensation to wheelchairs available for them, brought to them at no charge.
Yeah.
And to be able to.
By the way, everyone else has to wait for them to get off before they can do it.
But everybody else is inconvenienced for them. That is DEI, not to make your life worse, but to give equity to people who need something to be on a more equal level with other people who are able-bodied.
Right. So if those things weren't in place, it wouldn't kill those people. They just wouldn't be able to travel either as comfortably or at all, depending on how much they needed those wheelchairs. Like, it would have been much more difficult for them to walk on their own if they just use it because it's nice. It gives them a little rest of their legs, although they've been sitting the whole time on the plane. So if they need the wheelchairs always, then they wouldn't be able to travel without these accommodations. If they just use the wheelchairs in the airplane or in the airport because, oh, that's a lot of walking, I'm not sure if I can handle it, let's get a wheelchair, doesn't cost us anything, it'll just make it easier. Okay, well, you could still travel if you wanted to without the DEI stuff, but it would be much tougher on you. So it's just there to make things easier for people.
Yeah, and the other thing that kills me is when people will say, well, and we heard this a lot when Kamala was running. She's just a DEI hire.
Yeah.
Just a DEI hire. And what kills me about that is, first of all, just about every single minority that you see in a position of power is probably more qualified than anybody else around them because they've had to fight harder. For
Yep.
one, because of people that say stupid shit like that.
Yep.
I mean, the reason DEI is so valuable, especially the diversity part as far as jobs are concerned, is that, well, and I guess in the I as well, is that before some of these things were in place, people that were highly qualified couldn't get jobs. And I think what people really get confused about is just how many white women are the recipients of DEI legislation. 77% of all DEI benefits go to white women, and yet white women rail against DEI. It's like, do you not understand?
Exactly.
Before that was around, you couldn't get a job. You couldn't get a credit card. You couldn't own a home. I mean, there's so many things that DEI helped to enforce. The fact that right now you can vote, but maybe not soon, that's DEI.
Yep.
If
anybody's ever watched the movie Hidden Figures,
where
it's about the team of Black women who really kind of helped solve the problem with the Apollo 13 incident, I think, or helped to get us to the moon. There was something significant they did. I can't remember exactly what they helped with. Several things, I'm sure, that they don't get credit for.
And there were no bathrooms?
Yeah. He was upset with her initially because why do you leave for so long and you're not at your desk? And she's like, well, I have to go to the bathroom. He's like, the bathroom's right down the hall. Nope. That was
not for me.
For whites only. She was also, I think, the only female in that whole room.
Yeah, she was.
So
and there was no consideration for her.
Right. Even if it wasn't segregated, there wasn't a women's bathroom that she could go to. And that's something that I'm sure echoed across many businesses, whether it was government, because obviously that was NASA, or private industry when it came to engineering type firms or science type firms. And that stemmed from most of the people that got to go to college in those days were men. Women didn't go to college as much. There weren't as many opportunities for them. They weren't expected to go into those level of positions in the workforce. So the fact that we have a much more diverse workforce now, my degree was in human factors engineering. There's no way, 2 or 3 decades before I was going to college, that wouldn't have even been a possibility. And there were still a much lower number of women engineers in the companies I worked for than there were men engineers, but certainly a lot more than there would have been if not for DEI policies and civil rights legislation.
You know what's interesting? I had just heard, this is kind of going off topic for a moment, but it kind of combines together. So I was just thinking about, the DEI and the railing against women and the seemingly higher, attacks on women and women's rights in the last few years. And it makes me wonder. It makes me wonder if it's also because women are taking over in places that have always been considered male dominant. For example, in fall of 2022, I'm just looking up the statistic, in fall of 2022, women made up 57.9% of all post-secondary enrollment. 57.9. Wow. There's more women going to college and getting degrees than there are men. And I think that some of this legislation that is coming out, some of this hate. Now, I know a lot of this stuff comes out of Project 2025 as far as the Trump regime is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
But even before he came into power, this was happening. I mean, this is fall of 2022. And I keep hearing about, maybe this is something we can talk about next week. It's just the rise of toxic masculinity and some of the things that are happening. DEI is just a portion of it. I think DEI is a target for some of the male toxicity. They believe, I truly believe, that these are the people that aren't necessarily Project 2025 aficionados, but just toxic men. They're angry because women are advancing in front of that. Women don't need them as much. And I'm just wondering if some of that is also just bleeding over into the DEI, the anger about DEI. Anyway,
I
I
do
was just
believe that's
curious.
true. Just in a similar way to, I think, the fact that so many people would point to the Obama presidency and say, well, this is where all this racism got stoked up
Yeah.
because they went, holy shit, a black person can be president? Fuck. We're in trouble. We got to start getting back to the white boy club or we're going to be out of here.
Yeah, and I know, because I've seen the posts about it, and I've seen people arguing about it, is that, there are white supremacists who are very upset that, there's more black people that have money. And especially if you are impoverished, you haven't gone out and found your thing yet, and you are poor, and then you see all these black people that are doing well. I think that's also raising the animosity, just because we are steeped in racism in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care what anybody says, we are.
Yeah.
And I think that really angered a lot of people too. And it really made me think about how the stock market manipulation, so much of this is also just anger with what's happening in the country, with more black people and more white people and more, pick an ethnicity, are doing better than white males.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they're also, I think they're also they're of their own creation.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the Republicans are concerned.
Yeah. And so it's interesting that you saw that it's 57% of women now in secondary education or post-secondary education.
Mm.
I also was doing some digging just about what is our national makeup, like what is, who are the high percentages in terms of population. Men are only 49.5% of the population. Women are 50.5% of the population. So we do outnumber them. And then when it goes down to race, I was kind of surprised. I kind of feel like these numbers may be skewed because I feel like there are some people that are concerned about indicating that they are of a different race. And so they just put white.
Yeah.
So that, I'm not sure those statistics are as accurate, but it actually said, let me see, where did I write that down? So 58% white, 20% Hispanic, 13% black. I just have a hard time believing that.
Yeah, that sounds a little off.
And even because some of them, the multiracial, it said like 3%. I'm like, nah, there's a shit ton of multiracial people. And so I think a lot of them, if one of their races is white, they're just putting white.
Yeah, you're probably correct. While we're on the topic, we're going to pull ourselves back over to DEI again. And just a little side note, we have a video here. This is, which one do you want me to show, Jenny?
Go ahead and show the one that you pulled in. We don't have to show the longer one if you don't want. If she has a good definition. That's fine.
Well, here, let's see what she says.
What do you think DEI is?
There are minority groups like women, people of color that have the merit to get these jobs but aren't being chosen because they're of minority status. And the point of DEI programs is to ensure that people that deserve these jobs but may be overlooked because of their minority status are looked at and evaluated the same way that other candidates are.
In terms of creating the best meritocracy, ensuring that the best person gets chosen to do the job, do you think having DEI is better or worse for that?
I think having DEI is better for that because we are making sure to take the time to look at people that might be overlooked based on the system that we have right now.
So she's only talking about getting hired as far as DEI, but it was an accurate description of what DEI is good for being hired.
Yeah. And I would say, so the example in that case of where civil rights end and where DEI begins. So there can be laws that say you cannot discriminate against hiring someone based on their color, gender, all those things. The DEI side of it would be on the company side when they have their hiring policies or interviewing policies, even or processes, procedures that they should have probably a diverse group of people interviewing the subject. So it's not all women interviewing and going, oh, we don't want that man working with us, or it's not all men going, oh, we don't want that woman in here. We want to keep it a boys club, but to have diversity within the hiring process. So it's not about quota. Now, I guess a company on their own could decide that they're going to try to enforce quotas, but that's not a government thing. That's Trump has no control over that other than taking away the civil rights legislation altogether.
Mm-hmm. Want to play this other one for the first 2 minutes?
Sure.
This is an overview, and I think it's a more comprehensive overview, if I'm correct. Is that right, Jenny?
Yeah,
More
it's not just
comprehensive overview of what DEI is. And here, let me go ahead.
Let's get the conversation started. Everyone is discussing DEI. Let's explore the distinction and the relationship between diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity is the presence of differences that may include race, gender, religion, sexual orientation, ethnicity, nationality, socioeconomic status, language, disability and ability, age, religious commitment or political perspective, populations that have been and remain underrepresented among practitioners in the field and marginalized in the broader society. Equity is promoting justice, impartiality, and fairness within the procedures, processes, and distribution of resources by institutions or systems. Tackling equity issues requires an understanding of the root causes of outcome disparities within our society. Inclusion is an outcome to ensure that all individuals feel and/or are welcomed. Inclusion outcomes are met when you, your institution, and your program are truly inviting to all. Inclusion is achieved when all individuals are able to participate fully in the decision-making processes and development opportunities within an organization or group. As you can see, each concept builds on the next through an intentional intersection. We must find ways to celebrate our diversity, to embrace opportunities for equity, allowing for students, colleagues, and friends to experience inclusion. These concepts do not exist in isolation. So what can you do?
So
Yes.
that really does cover the whole kind of broad spectrum of diversity. And there's so many categories. Everybody, I think, talking about it now or complaining about it now, wanting to get rid of it, is absolutely focused on the hiring thing. Well, not strictly the hiring thing, because one of the fallouts already of softening the inclusion type of aspect of it is that there have been several Spanish speaking opportunities, whether it's through the phone system, like when you're calling to get help with something. Several government entities have taken away the option, if you speak Spanish, press 2 or whatever. The Spanish language versions of government websites have been taken down. I know specifically, I think it was NOAA, something about the weather is no longer going to have a Spanish translation. So the warnings about imminent severe weather, if people don't speak English, they're not going to know what's coming.
That's just insanity. That's just insanity.
Yeah.
I don't understand that at all.
Yep. I mean, it's just all to make them feel uncomfortable and to try to think about leaving, most likely, or getting so depressed that the population ends up dwindling because they're no longer participating, so that the ones that aren't affected by these things can step right in and feel right at home and not threatened at all.
Yeah, and I think that is a big part of it. There's so many people that do not know and did not know, because some of them have found out, did not know that things that they are used to having around, benefiting from, getting privilege from, these were DEI initiatives.
Yep.
A lot of people who have lost their jobs and said, oh my gosh, I had no idea. We even talked about this last week. Wasn't there a girl that we talked about that she had a job and then she lost it, couldn't get another job. And she was like, I had no idea I was a DEI hire. And she still couldn't get the grasp of the fact that it's not because you're bad. They keep thinking, well, they've got hired because of some quota, and so they're just not good as everybody else. No, she's highly, highly qualified and can't get a job right now because DEI is being done with, and especially in her area, because she's in a mainly male exclusive type of situation to begin with. It's just insanity. And so there are so many groups. They were just mentioned in that video, but gender, race, religion, sexual orientation, age, disability, national origin.
Yeah. Now all those categories are protected by civil rights legislation. So those are all aspects of DEI that there are laws to try to have been laws anyway to try to protect.
Right, but it still doesn't protect people from getting jobs, not being able to get kicked out of their rental apartment. There are all these things that are going away that DEI took care of. That was all under that.
Right. And some additional categories or groups of people that can be helped by DEI, but there's not necessarily civil rights legislation that would protect them, that backs it up, would be like your economic position. Neurodiversity.
Yeah.
There's no there's no laws that's protecting people based on where they fall on a neurodiversity spectrum. Body size, both height and weight. That's something that certainly airlines is the easiest example.
Huge
of that.
example, yeah.
Yep. The style of family that you live in, whether it's a single family or multi-generational family, there can be some accommodations for that type of thing. Your education level, that's something that is more on the organization side versus actual civil rights. And that's something I remember from when I was working at the engineering firm I was at. There was a guy that did not have a college education or college degree, but he was our head database engineer. And man, if we would have lost him, that whole program would have collapsed, because he ran the database architecture that was the foundation for everything else that happened in that program. But he got paid less than like an entry-level software engineer, simply because he didn't have the college education. And there were some managers there that fought long and hard. It took several years, but they finally got him a decent raise and got him into, because they had a whole pay structure where if you were not a college degree, if you did not have a college degree, I don't even think you could be salaried. You had to be hourly. And
Wow.
so they were able to jump him into the salaried level so that he had those types of opportunities and benefits versus keeping him in the hourly pool because he didn't have a degree. But only because the people that worked around him and knew how valuable he was were like, this is ridiculous. Like, we literally cannot afford to lose this dude or we're in trouble.
Well, and there's some really crazy things that are happening right now, and I don't know if this has to do with DEI or not. And but some companies are putting in some arbitrary rules, and IBM just did this. They wanted to decrease the number of people in their business, and they just arbitrarily just went, "Hey, so we have a new rule in place, um, and so if you would like to keep working here, you must live within," and I'm just making a number up. I don't remember what the number was. You need to live within 15 miles of the office. We're not going to, so it's your decision. You can, if you don't live within 15 miles, you can quit. That's fine. You don't have to. Or you can move closer. You can keep your job, but you have to be within 15 miles. It's just this arbitrary fucking rule. And you have to decide, am I going to move myself? I've lived here for 20 years. Am I going to move myself so I can get closer to my job and keep my job, or work somewhere else? I mean, it's just, or can you even afford to move closer? It's just ridiculous that you can have a job and then suddenly lose it out of some arbitrary rule that just gets made up. But I have to believe that this has something to do with this new regime, because have you ever heard of something like that before?
I don't think so. I mean, these days, it seems like because we went through COVID and so many people or so many companies even recognized that work could be done remotely, it seemed to be coming up as more of an option that you could do either part-time remote or complete remote. So the idea of now forcing someone to be that local seems like it's going the complete opposite direction.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. It's just nuts. And we have so much more we could discuss about DEI. I know that one of the things we were going to discuss this week is just getting kind of late in the program. Discuss the threats so far that have happened. You mentioned a couple of them already.
Yeah.
But comparing Biden's cabinet to Trump's, et cetera, actual population percentages. So that's all very interesting as well. But we'll go ahead and maybe we'll talk about that next week. We actually don't know what we're talking about next week because we don't know what's going to happen this week.
Yeah.
Who could have predicted half the things that did happen this week?
Right.
We don't
I mean,
know.
there's certainly a lot more we could talk about within the DEI realm. Or, I mean, obviously the tariff thing is a big deal right now. That might be another area that we'll dive into at some point. Maybe next week's the right week, maybe not. Yeah, there's several options and we'll just kind of play it by ear, I think, and figure out what makes sense that's going to be most helpful and kind of on point or more relevant.
Yeah, and so I mean, we sure we'll figure it out, but it seems like this was weeks ago.
Yeah.
It seems like it was a long time ago. It was just this past Saturday. And it was funny, before the show, Jenny said, we need to talk about the protests. And I wasn't going to bring it up because it felt like it was so long ago.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, 5.2 million people were at the protests on Saturday across the country and across the world. I was so pleasantly surprised to see other countries marching in solidarity with us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was impressed, living down here in Florida, which is a red state, there were many, well, not just in Florida. I mean, I saw a lot of stuff just because I see more local stuff on my feed than national stuff, but
Sure.
even places in Utah and other red states, small towns that are more rural and therefore probably red, people showing up all kinds of places in the hundreds at least, even in small communities. It was so inspiring.
The one that surprised me the most was all of the people who showed up at the villages.
Yeah.
There was a protest march in the villages, and that was pretty impressive. Yeah, I saw one town where there's just one guy. It was just one guy on a corner. Very tiny little town, but it doesn't have to be a bazillion, but it was 5.2 million.
Mm-hmm.
That is no small amount of people.
Yeah. And I
And
heard it was a huge, I think it was multi-million just in DC alone.
wow, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
Hands off. So the hands off protest is coming again, as we were just showing. The next day of action is April 19th. And I know one of the, there were some people that were really downplaying or upset about the protests, not because they're siding with the Trump regime, but they were upset because they're like, look, what was that? You guys just went out and you just kind of marched. Nothing happened to you. What kind of protest is that? And I had a very similar feeling before I went on Saturday. My wife actually talked me into going because I looked at her and I was like, what is this going to do? Really? I mean, black people aren't coming out, so they're probably not going to have police. So it's just going to be a bunch of white people hanging around going, yeah, we hate Trump. Okay. Stop taking our Social Security, stop all the madness, all of that. But what is that actually going to do? Trump doesn't care about us. What does that actually do? And she talked me into going, she's like, look, it's not about whether something happens. It's not about whether there's a confrontation. It's not about any of that. It's about showing up and adding to the collective your voice, adding to the collective your energy.
Yep.
And I was like, she always is so logical. So I went, and she was right. There was a feeling, and it was a feeling more closely akin to when Harris was running, and I felt hope. It was so nice to see the different ages of people. It was so nice to see the white people collectively coming out together when we are historically not the people that come out and protest unless it's all just fun and games. And it really kind of was just all fun. It was good that there were some songs that we sang. That was good. But really nothing really happened. And of course the Trump administration denied that it had any value at all. And we already saw what happened to the Washington Post and New York Times that didn't show anything on their front page about the 5.2 million people that came out.
Yeah. Although I did see that at least local channels, like news channels, were showing it, because a lot of the clips I saw on social media were from like an ABC, local news cast or something like that. So at least it was getting that kind of attention, because there's been times when that didn't even happen.
No, that's very true. That's very true. And it was hard to ignore. But, and I'm just hopeful that we keep pushing forward, because at some point, and the point is going to come sooner than later, I think. At some point, we are going to have to put our bodies on the line. At some point, we're going to have to put our values on the line. We are going to have to stand up against things, because at some point, we're going to have to do more than just march on the street.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have to.
Yeah.
Anyway. But yeah, it was pretty awesome. I really am glad I came. Really am.
Yeah.
So keep in mind our next. Did you want to say something? I'm sorry.
Well, there's another video I think that we could show that would kind of be on the upswing and showing someone who was unleashed.
Oh yeah.
So we'll show that and talk about it on the other side.
Doesn't make you you strong. It doesn't make you a protector of family values.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Flag doesn't make you strong. It doesn't make you a protector of family values. It makes you look insecure, weak, and it makes you look like someone who spends an uncomfortable amount of time thinking about gay people. What is it about the pride flag that gets under your skin so badly? The joy, the inclusivity. But let's not pretend we don't know how this story ends. We've seen it before. Look at Huntington Beach. A city that used to be known for surf culture, now known nationally as Orange County's embarrassing MAGA wasteland. A city so obsessed with performative bigotry that it has become a punchline. That is what happens when you start making policies based on hate instead of actual governance. And that's the future you want for Aliso Viejo, to be the next place people point at and say, oh yeah, that city, the one that's scared of a rainbow. Well, let me remind you, this flag is much bigger than your personal discomfort. It represents a fight that started at Stonewall, where people risked everything just to exist. A fight that led the right for LGBTQ people to marry the person they love. And you think you're going to stop that? You think you're going to erase decades of progress with a petty little flag ban? Let's be clear. When you target a group of people for who they are, when you try to erase their presence, that's not policy, that's hate, dude. And when it turns into action, I'm gonna call it what it is. It's a hate crime. No, we will not be erased. We will not be pushed backward. The LGBTQ community has fought too hard and come too far to let this fragile MAGA ego undo the progress. You might think we're making a statement. That's right, we are. Our statement is this: we're not going anywhere. History is watching, the world will soon be watching, and the only thing more embarrassing than being afraid of a rainbow is thinking you can erase the people it represents. Thank you.
Now that was pretty badass.
Yeah.
That was pretty badass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think, more and more people need to consider showing up, continuing to show up. Like, that wasn't a town hall. That's where people get carted out, apparently. But this was, I believe, a city council meeting.
Oh, a council meeting. Okay.
Yeah. And so she obviously let them know, and there were cheers from the crowd that were supporting her. So even doing things like that in between national protests can start to move the needle, because it's not just at the national level that this has to be fought. We kind of have to, I think, fight it from the ground up and the sky down, to try to make things reasonable again. So I saw that and I was like, oh, this is a great example of how to be unleashed in a way that doesn't bring question about being respectful. I mean, she stayed to her time. She followed the structure. She wasn't aggressive. Like, she just said it like it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What is that called? Defiant compliance or something? Can't remember. There's a word for it. I can't remember. But yeah, so if you haven't already, make sure that you get signed up for the general strike, because when that happens, we do need you there. Where is the general strike? It's the General Strike US. Oh, there it is. You found it.
Mm-hmm.
GeneralStrikeUS.com. Please go ahead and sign up for that so we can together fight for our democracy, because that strike, when that happens, there's a certain percentage of people they need to have sign up in order to call it. So please sign up for that so we know when we get to that number. There's always the 5calls.org. It has your local representatives and your national representatives so that you can make calls and try and get some of this crazy shit stopped. At least the big thing is we need our representatives to start fighting for us. And we are seeing some of that happen, and hopefully more and more.
The most critical thing at this point probably is the SAVE Act, because that's being voted on. It's already been through.
Yeah. Call your senator.
Yeah.
Call your senator. The Senate's where it's going next. Call your senator.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, of course, April 19th is the next national strike. Let's see. Anything else?
No. And I will say, I think 5051 is the best place to find the April 19th thing because I went looking on Hands Off, and their website still talks about April 5th. So the 5050.1 seems to be the place to look for the next one and find out where the protest is near you.
Mm-hmm. And as always, make sure that at some point, now, of course, I just went to this last protest, and there wasn't much to it. There wasn't anything, you don't have to worry about things. That is going to change. So this is the activist checklist that you can prepare yourself to go to a protest if and when. I should just say when, because I don't think it's going to be an if. When protests start being more demonstrably violent, because the regime will fight back. Right now, see, I just think they look at us as ants. It's like, oh, look at the little ants going out there, and we're not bothering anything. We're not stopping anything. And I think that's the biggest complaint that I saw from activists saying, was it really a protest? Was it really? It just looked like a bunch of white people marching around. True, it was a bunch of white people marching around, but the part that really was important, I think, was that we showed up and it had a general sense of changing the mood, in that we saw that 5.2 million people showed up. That's more people than there are in active duty. There are more people that showed up than there are people in active duty. And I think that it was a veteran that was talking about this, and she said it was more than people in active duty and the National Guard combined. I haven't checked that, but I would imagine that that's true. She had no reason to lie about it. But so that was so encouraging to see as well.
Yeah.
And to understand that does a lot of people.
And I think hopefully enough of that video and pictures of how many people were showing up got around to even more people that weren't aware that that was happening in the first place, that this next one may even be bigger. Or, because another thing I heard from a lot of the local people, Cocoa was the closest one to us down here. I didn't get a chance to go because I had clients that day, but they were saying they were getting way more support from like honking cars and, thumbs up and stuff like that than they got any kind. I mean, of course, there's going to be, again, we're in a red county, so there's going to be the people yelling, hey, Trump, go Trump, or whatever. But they got a lot more support from people going by. And so those people driving by were probably like, oh, shit, I didn't know this was going on. When's the next one? So hopefully that momentum will continue to build. And then the economic side of things that we've also been talking to everyone about, the Walmart blackout has been this week. I have not gone to Walmart all week. It goes through the 13th, which is Sunday. And then the next economic blackout, this is like the full try not to spend your money at any big corporate entity, on the 18th, awesome. Which will be next Friday. That's our next podcast on the 18th.
Awesome. Okay.
Yep.
Great. And then next week, we're going to take a deep dive into another hot topic. Which one? We don't know. We're going to see.
Tune in to find out.
Well, let's see. Let's see what happens. Yeah, tune in and you'll find out. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe, follow, share. If you have a topic question, please go to our website, unleashedafpodcast.com, www.jdd page, and let us know what you'd like us to know. And let's see. I think that's just about it, isn't it, Jenny?
I think so. Let me see if there was anything else like. No, I think that's it. Yeah, I think we covered it all.
All right. So until next week, make sure you get unleashed, and we will see you then.
I'm done trying to live up to others' expectations. Family, society, class, race, sex, or religions. It's time to break free from the isms that make us feel like we're in prison. I'm ready to be unleashed as fuck.